Welcome to more boring stuff that must be done. Well, I say boring stuff that must be done. That's only if you want an emergency brake, or as some may call it, the parking brake. But this brings us one step closer to being able to drive this thing. Just a little bit of clearance between there, not rubbing on any of the tubes right there. That'll work. And there you have it. The rest of this video is how I put Chevy Cruze brakes and brake cables on an LS4 drivetrain in the back of a 7th gen Toyota Celica. And the other modification I'm going to have to make is going to be to flip these around this direction so that the cable pulls forward. On the Chevy Cruze, they sat this way, and this arm stuck down and it pulled that direction. But I can't do that because the caliper mounts for this axle are on the front of the axle, and I've got a drive axle going in there that's in the way. So this all has to be flipped over, swapped side to side so I get my bleeders on the top. And this will have to be put here so the cable can pull forward, which means I need to put a hole for this mount bolt, keep this from swinging back and forth over here where there's no metal at. So that should be a lot of fun, but I believe that's going to be the easy part of this modification. But they're going to work. And now it's time to work on the next little hurdle to overcome on the brakes. The cable is going to end up routing straight into the spindle right here. So I'm going to have to flip that over and bring the cable out forward. And to do that, it's going to require a little rework of this bracket right here, and flip it over, drill a new hole in it for the bolt. All right, another in the long line of never throw anything away. These are actually pieces of the crating from my lift from years ago, and they're still laying around the shop, so perfect thickness of steel to use. Throw that on there, trace around it. And I also ordered some new rubber boots for my slide pins because somebody, while they were welding those brake brackets up, well, they got them a little bit hot, so we need some new ones of those. So we got them. Now, if this turns out the way the last one did when I cut it out, the last one needed very little filing after I did the after I cut it with a plasma cutter. So I'm hoping for the same thing on this one. Something like that. Well, she's kind of carved out. She's pretty close to fitting, if I put it the right way over here. A little ugly on the edges yet, and needs a little cleaning up. Now I shall stick it together with some liquid metal. Should I say hot liquid metal? Hey, helps you hook up the ground wire. Now if I didn't weld it to my holder square plate there, perfect. Would you bet your life on those welds? Yes, I guess I would, but I don't have to because they just hold the emergency brake cable. Or as one might call it, parking brake cable. And then we're going to smooth all this off so there's a flat surface to mount to. And a little work with a file to make this hole round enough to fit over the caliper. It's semi-round, fairly flat. Fits over there like it's supposed to. All I have to do now is cut off my support here that I use to hold it while I'm working on it. And the next thing I have to do is drill a hole that lines up exactly with that. So again, I need to be able to mark this on the back side without being able to see it. So I made this little guy. The only problem with this thing is it's kind of a one-time use deal. If you hit it too hard, that center part of it, the little center pin, will collapse into the screwdriver slot, but it has to have that screwdriver slot in there in order to be able to get it back out. First time I used it on the other one, I hit it a little bit too hard, and well, I had to remake it, so. But it should work. And there we have it. Leave it standing up just a little bit. Lay this over it, figure out exactly what angle I want it to set at, give it a little tap, and I should have a center punch mark. All right, then. Well, I've already done one of these, so I know about where it needs to be. It needs to be just to that side of this bolt. And this will determine my final position because this stop has to be against here and hold this from coming back against the stop inside of the brake caliper. So, right there, try one notch over. Right there. All right, I've got everything lined up about where I want it. I'm just going to give it a light tap. That'll put a light center punch mark on it, and then I'll move the hole over slightly so that it'll push this arm over and not let it rest tight against the stop. So let's see how this works out. That should have left a mark on it, I hope. Yep, one little tiny center punch mark. Now I'll move that hole over just slightly so that this stop moves this way, and that arm won't be against the internal stop on the caliper. Right there's my little punch mark. And I'm going to center punch it just a little bit to this side of that mark. Beautiful. And the good news is I didn't hammer it down so hard that I crushed the screw slot shut on my punch this time. Yeah, I think I can get a bolt in that hole. Snug enough to hold it for a little while. And that bolt won't quite go in the hole. So I just have to pull this arm this way just a little bit. And I think that'll do it. Now cut that ear off, clean the rest of this up. I'll have a whole brand new brake caliper reversing mount cable thing, whatever you call it. Yeah. Pull on that, then it'll come back. Well, don't. There we go. Now we got it. I forgot to shoot some video of the completed part or take any pictures, so I'm shooting it inside the car. And of course, another bracket. And now the next fun step is going to be to get the paint off all this so I can weld it. This way I can figure out exactly what distance I need it so that the cable's routed the right direction. And with all this room in here, I just reach in here with my third arm. Mark that right at the front edge, and that's where I'll weld it in at. Now, as long as the spot welds don't break off, we'll be just fine. And we'll see how hot this is when I touch it a couple times. Alright, there we go. It looks almost like the one on the other side does. Now, two more brackets further forward on these cables and hook it up to the emergency brake lever, and we'll have emergency brakes. Figure out how it goes together. Put it together. Take it apart. Figure out how something else goes together. Something gets in the way. Take it apart. Put it back together. So what I have to do now is get up here and hook this to the brake cable up there, get all that set up. So I'm going to have to take these two heater tubes out of my way, and just those two should be enough. Hopefully I don't have to take any more of this stuff out of the way to do this. This should be one of those rather simple take it aparts, I hope. Let's see how much of a mess I make when I pull this apart. There shouldn't be any water in it, but there's going to be a little bit in the lower parts of the hoses. And it's just water, so that's a good thing. And, yep. See if that screw will stay in the clamp right there. And I think if I pull this one out, it should drop down and move over a little bit without having to take it all the way out. Yeah, that'll give me enough room to get in there and work a little bit. Get my temporary anti-rattle spring out of the way here. And then the decision has to be made whether I use this bracket or this bracket to hold the cables. I think I'm going to have to use this one because the hole is too big in this one right here. So the Chevy Cruze one has to go, I think. fun part is they have safety clips on the edges. So let's see how hard those are to bend. Oh, they're not bad. Not bad. That will fit in the hole, but the slot's not wide enough. So we're gonna have to take a close look at that and see how we can make that work. Dang engineers, who designed this thing anyway? People that design things never thinking about who's gonna work on them. All these pipes in the way. This cable end has a slightly larger diameter than the original Celica one had. It will fit in there. This right here is going to need to be opened up, flattened out a little bit so that the radius is the same, so that this piece will go farther up into it, because right now there's not enough room for the clamp to even get in there. So we've got a lot of figuring out to do here. How am I going to straighten that out a little bit without bending everything else? All right, I'm not going to say this is the best idea, but this is the best idea so far. I just put a 1/2-inch bolt in there, and I'm tightening another bolt down into the bracket, and it's pressing that bolt up in there pretty good, and it looks like it's straightened the hook a good bit. So I'm going to take it back apart and see what happened. I have to say it definitely opened up that curve. Let's see if it opened it up enough. I think I have a plan that's going to work, and it's going to be really easy. We're going to bore this hole out a little bit so that the swedged end of that cable will slide down into here. We'll just drop the swedge through, and since we've rotated it 90 degrees now at the emergency brake handle end, it used to stand up and down in this one. Now it'll sit sideways in here, and that'll lock it in place. And because the cables turned out to be just about the right length, they're all just about parallel across. So I think this is going to work. I'm going to open this up a little bit so that that cable can get down in there. Because the end swedge stands up and down in this, and when I get through modifying this one, it'll have to lay sideways. Right now the cable is making this thing try to stand up in here this way. And what I'm going to check is if this square can be turned a 1/4 turn. If I can turn this a 1/4 turn in here, then it will turn that swedge on the end from standing upright like that to laying sideways, and my idea will work perfectly. And if I can't change the angle of it, it'll still work. It just will have to resist trying to turn on its side. So it is square, so it can be turned, it looks like. But I may have to bend this little tab on the bottom. There we go. Put these back on here. And let's go back underneath and see how it works. Line that up with the slot, drop it in place, spin it around, then we get to try to do this with the other one, which may or may not be easy to do. I don't know. Twist, pivot, pull, and there's no way I'm going to keep my hands out of the way of the camera doing this one. But anyway, so you can see where I'm headed there. Maybe you're almost there. You gotta be kidding me. All right. Just doesn't want to, the cable doesn't want to lay that direction, so. So much room to work up here. Well, ta-da! Hook the ball ends back up at the caliper end. Looking good so far. Now if I can figure out how to bend these tabs back down, that shouldn't be a problem. All right, click the welder on, click the welder off, and magically the last couple of tabs are in place and ready for the last two brackets for the brake cables to be bolted on. And the tabs, of course, are aluminum, stuck to aluminum. I didn't say I knew how to TIG weld, I said I owned a TIG welder. Getting a little better. Not really. Yeah, a little. And there you have it, emergency brakes. Boring, but necessary. Well, necessary if you need them in an emergency. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Until next time.